This is the month that we honor the Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And as such, I thought it would be appropriate to begin with a quote from the Tao Te Ching. This is from Stephen Mitchell's translation, and it's verse 19. Just stay at the center of the circle and let all things take their course. Stay at the center of the circle. My talk today is called The Circle of Love. And the idea is that this circle is a powerful one. Often when I do weddings, I talk about the symbolism of a ring. It has no beginning and no end, and therefore it represents continuous love. Our earth is the same. It's circular, it's round in shape, and it represents the same unending love if we choose to see it that way. A focus on circles is evident throughout human history. There's a place in Turkey called Göbekli Tepe, and it is a series of stone circles, and it is the oldest known temple in the entire world. It was built 6,000 years before Stonehenge. Just to give you 6,000 years before Stonehenge, which is another famous circle. In ancient Greece, because of their symmetry, circles were seen as representations of the divine and of natural balance. Whole civilizations organized themselves around the sacredness of the sun and the moon. We see them in Hindu mandalas. Halos float over saints and mystics. Labyrinths are circular. The yin-yang symbol in China, the zodiac in the Mayan culture, the four elements in Native American symbolism. In math, the study of circles has helped inspire the development of geometry and astronomy and calculus. Not to be outdone, the Olympics have 5 circles. So, what does this have to do with us? A lot, my friends, a lot. So let us expand on this, shall we? I created a few diagrams for us to just take a little journey into this mystical idea. Rebecca, let's go with slide number 1. Here we are, the circle of the world and you. There it is, the world, the big circle of the world and me. There I am. Here you have a representation of the whole world. It is one big circle. And it's kind of how we start out, kind of like I shared earlier. My nephew who was born last night, little Bo Joseph, he has started out in this beautiful big world. However, we quickly learn that our world is actually made up of a few circles that overlap throughout life. Here we are. This is more kind of what it looks like, really. The world, me, and what is this business, Shannon? I will get to it. So because you have within you all of your past experiences and relationships that have grown you, some have been great, some have not been great, but through it all, this thing we call life, you have arrived in this place where you are today. You can see that you also have with you all of your past experiences and relationships within this circle of life, within this circle of love. Understanding that, of course, you are not your past. We are not our past. However, we are all continuing to learn and to grow from our past. And this, of course, informs all of us. Yes, it informs where we are today. We teach here that just like a circle has no break in it, our growth, our spiritual growth is continual. It doesn't stop. None of us walk on water yet, right? Practitioners are the first ones to tell you that the journey continues. It's not like you become a practitioner and suddenly you stop practicing. It's called practice for a reason. We practice. And we practice a lot here, don't we? So just as we continue our spiritual growth, what ends up happening is that we begin to move more regularly into an awakened state, or at least into a state that is conscious. That is our goal here, that we are awake, as the Buddha said, in our life, right? And so now, being awake and being more conscious in our life, what ends up happening is we start to utilize the spiritual tools that we offer here, and we start to see our life get better. We begin to experience this idea of flourishing in our life, in our current life. Of course, this comes from all of the choices that we are making today, right? And all the people that are in our life right now. And so behind circle number 2, we have your current family, friends, coworkers, and community. Do you see how those circles overlap? We are all getting to move forward in this circular motion that is unbroken and infinite, the circle, right? You see the overlap there. Can you see then how we learn from each other and how we are each other's teachers? We are all, every single one of us, cycling around and around our growth, discovering greater truths and leaning into the opportunities to love more. Gloria Steinem said, "To me, the model of success is not linear. Success is completing the full circle of yourself." We like to think that our growth is sort of on this linear upward trajectory, when in fact, true spiritual growth is unending. The circle goes back and back. You know how that is when you have, let's say you've healed something in your life, whatever it might be. Let's say it was a toxic relationship or maybe a pattern or behavior that was not healthy for you. Do you recall it coming back around? Anybody? Might have looked like you found yourself in the same exact relationship, but the person just had a different face. Maybe. Or that thing that you had laid down, you picked up again and went, "What the heck, man?" Anybody? Okay. So there's this thing in the secular world. Folks like to say, "Oh, I'm being tested." We don't buy into that. There's no mean God in the sky that's testing anybody. Please. Our God is a God of love, unconditional love. It's not about being tested. It's about having the opportunity to go even deeper and to grow in an even deeper way. Do you see? So now that you've healed that thing and it comes back around, you go, "Oh, hell no." Been there, done that. And you know it's healed. Yes? Yes. All right. So, speaking of circles, here at the New Thought Center for Spiritual Living, we even have something called spiritual growth circles, where folks gather in person or online each week to unpack the material presented on Sundays or, whatever is coming up in the world. I want to stop and say and acknowledge the shooting that just happened in Buffalo, New York, that was racially motivated. It's deeply painful. And what I know is that our spiritual growth circles, our practitioners, our social justice collective that meet are going to be looking into that and praying and seeing what is ours to do. Spirit-led social activism is the foundation of this ministry, and there is much work to do there. I just wanted to acknowledge that. I think it's very important. And we're going to pray later, but I want to just say it has to stop. It has to just enough. It has to stop. It has to stop. So here is the thing about these circles that overlap. We're always overlapping in these circles. And Rebecca, would you mind, darling, just to take this down for a moment? Because now that we have this visual, I want us to take a moment and address the messy human part, okay? The messy human part of being in these circles, especially in the circles I want to unpack right now that are our own, our family, our community, our friends, our coworkers. That circle can get messy, yes? No? Just me? Okay. All right. This is the human journey. This is the human journey that we are all on, that the saints and the mystics talk about. In his book, The Universal Christ, Father Richard Rohr talks about a massive 150-year-old Rio Grande cottonwood tree. And this particular tree stands in the backyard of his Center for Action and Contemplation, a very sacred place in New Mexico. And he explains that this particular cottonwood tree spreads its very gnarled limbs all over their lawn. Have you ever seen trees like that, where the limbs are kind of above the earth almost, going in and out, and they're very sort of gnarled and twisty? He says that new visitors are drawn to this tree immediately, and it's massive, it's huge, and they like to stand in its shade, and they look up at the mighty boughs sort of in awe there. And an arborist told Father Richard that the tree actually might have a mutation that causes these huge trunks to make such circuitous turns and twists. Looking at this tree, he shared that one wonders how it manages to even stand firmly, you know? Yet he writes, the cottonwood is easily the finest work of art that we have at the center, and its asymmetrical beauty makes it a perfect specimen for one of our organization's core messages. Divine perfection is precisely in the ability to include what seems like imperfection. He continues, before we come inside to pray, work, or teach any theology, its giant presence has already spoken a silent sermon over us. Divine perfection is precisely the ability to include what seems like imperfection. Rebecca, would you please put that slide back up again, dear? That one we were just looking at. My current family, friends, coworkers, and community. So who knows? I don't know, maybe in your immediate circle of love, you don't have anyone who gets twisty and gnarled like that tree? No. But if you do, if there is someone in your life that can be hard to love at times, I invite you into the spiritual truth that just like the cottonwood tree, we are all made in the image and likeness of love. Every single one of us. And what grace that is. What grace to think that when we get all twisty, like that cottonwood tree, there are people in our lives who remember our divine perfection at the center of our own pisosity. Yes. I'm sure grateful. Thank you, Reverend Masando. But you know what I mean? We're all human. And isn't it extraordinary that we have people in our lives who remember the truth of us in any given moment when we get twisty, you know? At our core, the deepest place within us is that we are all made in the image and likeness of love. Those in our circles in our past, those in our current circle, and I believe it's a big part of our journey to remember that and to live into that, which brings me to our third circle. Drum roll, please. And everyone and everything else, including all the people who do not agree with you. They are in our circle too, damn it. But they are. They are. Seriously, friends, think about for a moment. Think about all the people in that third overlapping circle. We talk about oneness here almost every week, right? I thought maybe a Venn diagram would just help to make it even more clear when we are having this conversation. We humans love to compartmentalize and think that the people in that third circle are separate from us. We just kind of do that automatically. But the truth is we overlap all the time. It doesn't matter our political affiliation or who is vaccinated or any of the other things that can seemingly separate us. What was that Richard Rohr quote again? Ah, yes. Divine perfection is precisely the ability to include what seems like imperfection. Divine perfection is precisely the ability to include what seems like imperfection. Now, I know that this can feel like a strange and an unsettling time, especially now with everything that is going on. And the temptation might be to try to make our circles exclusive and choosy. We do that. But right now is the exact time to consciously overlap them, to reach out wherever we can. There is not one single human being on this planet that has more God or more spirit in them than you do. It's just that for some people, it's really, 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 really hidden under a bushel. But that divine love, the ineffable presence of the divine, is at the center of all of us, whether we know it and whether we act like it or not. I know for me, I go right back to this truth when I'm having a hard time forgiving something that is really hard to forgive. Underneath all of it, there is divinity at the center of that person. One of the spiritual tools that also helps is the opportunity to lean into our shared humanity. You know, what gives me hope is when I see or I hear stories about people who jump in and who just help each other without knowing what circle they're in. That's our natural way. That's our natural way before we are taught to separate those circles. That's our natural way. There's you might have heard of this story. There's a gentleman, 39-year-old man named Darren Harrison, whose wife is pregnant. And he was on a small plane, a Cessna. And he had just been on a fishing trip in the Bahamas. He was flying to Florida when something happened with the pilot, and the pilot passed out and slumped over. Some of you have heard that? He slumped over, and the plane started going into a nosedive. Without hesitation, Darren jumps over 3 rows of seats. He gets in the cockpit. He moves the pilot over. He finds the headphones, puts them on, figures out how to radio air traffic control. He's never flown a plane before. But here's the thing. There were multiple people who just jumped in and helped him. There were people in Florida, air traffic control. There was someone in Washington, D.C. There was a pilot instructor on a break near the air traffic control tower who heard about this, stopped eating, and ran to the tower to help this Darren in this situation. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Nobody's thinking, how does he vote? There were 10 seconds just before he was trying to land the plane, and I love this part. This is so cool. The air traffic controllers were saying that they were terrified inside, but because they understand in circumstances like this, energy is everything, they overrode that within themselves and chose to be as calm as humanly possible. And so did Darren. So the air traffic controller, the educator rather, the teacher, he keeps telling him, you're going to need to slow down in order to land. You got to he's kind of calming himself. So no, you really need to slow it down, buddy. You got to slow it down. And then everything went dark for 10 seconds. They didn't know what had happened. Can you imagine how long those 10 seconds were? All those people connected in that moment, not knowing each other, but completely, divinely connected in that moment. 10 seconds goes by, and then suddenly Darren comes back on the radio. They take an exhale, and he says, okay, I'm landed. I have no idea how to stop this thing. Can you imagine? Dude, where's the brakes? I'm happy to report that the pilot is absolutely fine, who slumped over, and everything ended up just fine. The thing is, my friends, we are all of us, in the same circle of love that is this life. Ocean Wong is a Vietnamese-American poet, essayist, and novelist, and the recipient of many writing awards. If you do not know his work, I highly recommend it. He wrote, "Some people say history moves in a spiral, not the line we have come to expect. We travel through time in a circular trajectory, our distance increasing from an epicenter only to return again, one circle removed." Because really, my friends, here is what our circle of love actually looks like. Rebecca, if you would. It's me and everyone and everything. That's the mystical view. That's the spiritual view of the circle of love. Me and everyone and everything. So, as you move into your week, I invite you, my friends, to remember that we are all in that very same circle, every single one of us. This will make the forgiveness easier. It will make spirit-led activism more effective because it is anchored in love and spiritual truth. And stay tuned. We are going to be marching and doing all kinds of things in this community, so stay tuned for that. Remembering this truth will bring ease to those twisty moments and the people in our lives who can be twisty, and the moments when we are twisty. Hold to this. Hold to this knowing. We, every single one of us, live in this circle of love. Ourselves, everyone, and everything. It's the air we breathe, and it's the air we share. Hi, friends. I hope that our message inspired you today. I want to give you an opportunity to pay it forward. We are able to do all that we do here. We're able to get this message to you wherever you are in the world based on contributions. We're a nonprofit. And so I wanted to give you an opportunity to do that, to pay it forward. You can click the link in the description box below or go to our website. No amount is too small or too big. We are so grateful. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Know that you are loved. Mwah. Have a good week.